Hello and welcome to Hello Governor, the podcast. As always, I am Abdullah, and my guest today is introduce yourself, good sir.
Hi, my name is Gerard Caster. I am a voice actor based in Dallas, Texas. Thank you so much for having me.
So, first question is the obvious one: how did you get started, and what made you want to get into voiceover?
Yeah, so what initially made me want to get into voiceover was really honestly just wanting to get back into acting. I've been on and off since my early 20s. I took some college theater and did some film acting, mostly extra work, based in Las Vegas. And then moved to Tennessee, kind of fell out of acting, did a lot of restaurant work, and then eventually I started watching My Hero Academia's dubs specifically, and I was like, ah, this is so good. Makes me want to like jump into it. And I've always been a fan of anime, always been a fan of acting, and a few of my peers, I've seen them get into it as well, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna make the jump. Did the leap of faith, moved to Dallas, Texas, took some classes, and sure enough, I got pulled in. And yeah, I've been doing it for almost 2 years now.
And what do you love and hate about what you do?
Ooh, what I love about it is that we get the pictures for dubbing. ADR specifically is what I usually do. So we get pictures and we get to see what we're about to record before we jump into it. But what I dislike about it is really the fact that we only have that small amount of time to you see the picture and then you jump right into it, as opposed to like prelay where you get all the script beforehand and you have time to kind of practice what's the scene and do all your study work.
And how did you take to dubbing? Was it easy or was it hard?
Well, at first I wouldn't say hard. It was definitely awkward at first. I definitely took some classes. Luckily, we have Jason Lord runs some dubbing classes, so I did some of that before jumping in. Then I took some other in-person dubbing workshops with like Kyle Phillips and Caitlin Glass. And luckily, I was able to learn how to dub before I started. But even jumping into the actual booth at Crunchyroll's physical studio, it it feels like you're in an alien ship compared to like your at home studio because you're used to how your setup is at home. Maybe your TV's positioned differently or something. And I call it a COVID actor from from the COVID era where a lot of voice actors kind of sprung out of nowhere. We took a lot of classes online and did a lot of our stuff online, so we didn't do too much physical stuff unless we went out and did workshops. So I'm trying to get more into physical workshops now, even. But yeah, so it's just jumping into the physical studio was definitely a challenge, I'd say. And even to today, I still find myself like, oh, this place feels foreign, you know?
And when you're dubbing, do you look at the script or screen?
So I look at the screen while while they're giving us a chance to before we jump into our read, they give us that chance to watch the screen. And I watch the screen first and I kind of like memorize what the screen looked like. Okay, this is the character's facial expression, this is what's going on around him, this is what the people are saying to him. And then when it's time to actually do the read, I'll just look at the script because I already know what happens on screen. So I'm not like pre-planning I never pre-plan how I'm going to say something, but I do remember the scene. I do look at the scene and understand what's happening. And so when I go into the read, I'm looking only at the script, and I might dart my eye over to the dub screen to see if like is this fitting the mouth flaps? And if not, then I'll just jump into a second read and do it again.
Do you keep a note of how many mouth flaps there are, or is it just like I'll just look at the I'll just I'll just read it as is and then see
Right,
how it
right.
lines up?
Well, to help the engineer, I try to make a mental note, like, okay, but I don't fixate on it. And the reason why is because I don't want my reads to sound robotic. And the the writers already did that work for you. You should only really be worrying about the read. Um, Granted, sometimes it helps to like take note of that, but like I'm not gonna lie, I don't always do that. And if I did, I don't think my reads would come out as good as they can. Um, so I'm always just focusing on my acting, and I'm not perfect. So like sometimes the reads could have been better, you know. And sometimes the episode will come out, and you're like, damn, I could have done that a lot better. But the director is my I call them the the approval kind of net where like your reads filter through the director, and if the director tells you they like it, then you're good. You can stop worrying about it, because they know the whole situation better than you do. So you're just, you're in there doing the best you can, and if they like it, you move on. I'm still teaching myself to do that now.
And do you watch any of the stuff you worked on, or can you not stand listening to yourself?
I I have a problem where I obsessively analyze what I do, and I try to make notes of probably to a fault of what I could be doing better the next time. Um, if I dislike my reads, or even if I dislike someone else's reads, or if I like someone else's read and I like my own, or either way. I tried to make notes of the entire episode and mostly mine, and I just make notes. Why did I dislike that? Why did I like that? No, what, now why did you read it like that? And to a fault. But I try to dial that back down. But yes, I absolutely watch the full episode to get a full understanding of where I'm at and where everyone else is at.
So I take it like you're one of those rare people who has like a mountain of notes after one
Yeah,
viewing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, but my here's my problem right now that I'm dealing with. I I think everyone sounds so good to the point where when I listen to myself, I'm so analytical of myself that I'm like like oh you know why can't you be as good as them? But it's like it's not. It's because it's my own voice, and I'm like trying to understand that like we all have a uniqueness that we bring to the project, and no, and it doesn't necessarily mean just because I hear myself and at some point I might be like, oh, I dislike that read or whatever, doesn't mean it's a bad read. It's just why I question it. Why do I feel that way? And most of the time it's a an imposter syndrome most of the time speaking to me, but I'm sure that's something you probably hear about a lot from actors.
I say this a lot, but I truly believe that no, there is no worse critic than ourselves because
Exactly.
we're the ones who are hypercritical of our work the most because
Yeah. Yeah.
because 9 times out of 10 you ask someone, okay, what did you think of me in this, and they're like, oh, you were good or you were fine,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when it come but when you're looking at it, all you can see is the flaws.
It's horrible. I literally what you just said. I just did that with this Blue Lock episode that came out, and I sent it to a few people, and I was like, hey, like, what do you think about these reads? Like, and they're like, oh, it sounds fine to me. Sounds good to me. Some people are like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's nothing like in my head. I'm like, oh my God, you could have done everything differently.
And it's tough, especially when you're working with people who have, been doing this for a while and the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome kicks in and then you're like, but what do they want me for? You know?
Oh, absolutely. 100%, especially with Blue Lock, because you got all kinds of actors in there who've been in this forever, and who've been in all kinds of huge shows, and they've been working on these huge shows since forever, and here I am pulling up, and it's like, what? Why do I deserve a seat at this table? But then you got to remind yourself, it's like, you deserve it, and just like anyone else deserves it, if you put in the work and you prove yourself, and there's a reason. I always tell myself there's a reason why I'm here.
And speaking of Blue Lock, how did you get involved in that?
Oh, dude. So Jonathan Rigg ended up pulling me in for a few Walla sessions last year, and then eventually gave me a role with Spellblades, Reign of the Seven Spellblades, and uh, and I think I got one more role after that, and then I think I've slowly kind of built this trust with him where he's like like, oh, I can throw him as one of the U20 guys for Japan, and And yes, that's essentially just kind of building trust with the director, I think is the biggest way to continue to prosper work with them.
And that is important. I remember,
Yeah.
you mentioned Caitlin Glass. I actually got a chance to meet her at a local con a month ago, and I had talked to her about like building trust with her actors, and I was shocked at how like confident she was, where she's like, "No, I don't, I don't have enough. I mean, I don't." And she's like, "I don't have what do you call it? Like, there's not much of a hurdle when it comes to me and building trust with actors because when I work with someone, I know that they're good for the part and I know what they're capable of and it was really eye-opening. So but the point is that I think that it is important to build trust between the actor and the director because
Yeah.
it is a what do you call it it's not a what do you call it a solo effort. It's a
Right.
what do you call it
It's like a relationship, like a symbiotic relationship kind of
yeah
thing.
that's
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. No, it's a and Caitlin is what she says. I'm sure a lot of directors would say is because it makes a lot of sense. It's like you bring in someone who you believe can do the job, and why would you do it any other way? I mean, you can give people a shot, and you can give them a shot, and try them out. But then maybe you're like, oh, maybe I'll wait a little bit before I use them. I assume I've never been a director, so I'm just assuming, um. But yeah, from a voice actor's perspective, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't expect a director to bring me in unless they believed I could do the job. Why would they, otherwise? So, um, you slowly build it over the years, and then you work with, more directors and stuff, and maybe you're a better fit for other directors for other shows at certain times, and all that comes into play, and yeah.
while we're on the subject of Blue Lock, have you been, where was that a series that you were keeping up with before you got cast in, or was it just like, hey, what's this thing,
Yeah, no, it's one of the shows, one of my favorite shows right now. So I've definitely been keeping up with it. So I was I was kind of not really shocked, but I was more of like kind of like like this is a thing now. I'm in the show that I'm finally in a show that I actually watch because that's never been a thing up until this point. It feels kind of weird.
No, but you're in My Hero Academia, so I mean,
That's true. That's true. I do watch my here. I do watch. You're right. You got me there. I do watch. I did watch that before getting. I guess getting cast as like a named character. I don't. My hero. I think I don't have any named character. I think it's mostly just Walla and Bits in my hero. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
I mean, hey man, I've talked to people who are like, you know what, I would have loved to have been in My
Oh
Hero
yeah.
in any capacity, but it's like, but I mean, I mentioned this before. I think the problem with that show is that everybody who was cast already got cast, and all everyone else was left with like just the wall of bits and like
Yeah,
what
and
have
don't get
you.
me. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And don't get me wrong, like the Walla and Bits is phenomenal. I'm forever grateful to have been a part of that show, and I hope I continue to get to do Walla and Bits because that's some of the most fun acting actually. With a group of people, and it's you just go in, have fun, and I'm all for it. But My Hero Academia, yeah, that's one where I'm hoping and I'm thinking is going to continue in some way, whether it be a spin-off, more movies, maybe the author continues to write. I hope I have high hopes for My Hero to continue, and maybe we get another shot, you know?
Yeah, because like whenever an anime becomes like super popular, everyone wants to be a part of it somehow. It's like I don't, like I want to be a part of this, and it's really interesting because it's like very rarely do you see like an ongoing anime with like a huge universe and has like plenty of characters, and you're like, as an actor, you look at that and you're like, I want to play in that world, you
Yeah, that's
know?
literally it. That's literally it's like, oh, I would love to be in. I would love to be in. It's like, it's kind of the driving force of being a voice actor is just you know, having these aspirations, but like at the end of the day, you're there to be a solution for the show, a vessel, if you will. You're you're one of the tools in the toolbox for a director to pull from, and you might not always get what you want, and that's cool. That's part of the job, you know. Um, but yeah, no, absolutely. Here's hoping more My Hero. I'm all for it. I love My Hero. It's definitely one of my favorite.
And speaking of Walla, like, was there any difficulty transitioning from like Walla to a named role in Blue Lock, or was it not much of a difference?
Well, Walla is a lot of improv, and then bits are you get a couple lines, and they don't make that big of an impact on the overall uh like screenplay, but it definitely makes an impact. But it's not like, you're not a main character with like 100 lines, or you're not a side character with like 50 lines. You just maybe you have one line or whatever. So there's a difficulty in the sense of like the practice routine that you've gotten from going into just doing Wallow for so long to like a named character or whatever. But as far as like just general difficulty, I feel like I've been transitioning. I feel like Crunchyroll's done a really good job at transitioning me from not just throwing me big characters off the rip, and trusting me with a kind of a process of like, hey, let's try him out with some Wallow, let's try him out with some bits. Here's a side character. And then now here's a character with like a little bit more lines, and they're building me and they're trusting me with these shows, and to give me a chance to work on my craft with Crunchyroll. So as far as like a general overall difficulty, I wouldn't say there was like anything that was like stopping me from like acting, if that's what you mean. Um, but definitely a difficulty in like, oh, I'm here. This is Blue Lock. Throw that away. This is, you know what I'm saying?
It's like, yeah, no, I'm a named character now. I can't like do improv and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's a different game for sure. But at the end of the day, it's all acting is acting, and if you can act in Wallow, you can act in bits, and you can act in named roles for sure.
And seeing as simuldubs are a thing, do you watch the Japanese episode to get a handle of where your character's at first, or do you go in blind?
Yeah, I always watch the Japanese first. I always try to understand their performance to help better my performance. Um, it's interesting though, because Blue Lock is an interesting one because I watch the animation a lot to try to understand how to do performance, but this character specifically, Haru in Blue Lock is very almost stoic in a way. So like this is like my first time playing a character who kind of pulls himself back a lot. And so I'm noticing like that I am challenging myself in doing so. And the animation sometimes is different than, not different, but I don't know. Yeah, a little bit different than like the Japanese would be like maybe more um uh not aggressive, but maybe like serious. And then I would look at the animation, and he looks almost like super laid back. So I'm like doing math in my head. I'm like, okay, like he looks super laid back, but the read is a little more serious. And my overanalyzing mind is like, now how do we translate this well to my read? And that's what you get. But that's just I overanalyze. I don't know if other people do that. It's a problem again.
It's a sports anime, dude. It ain't that
Yeah.
deep.
And that's my thing too, is like with every show I do, I take it to that next level of like, hey, I want this to sound as like as as best as I can make it sound. And I always want to do a service and not a disservice to like whatever the show is, even if it's another isekai or another sports show. It's like I want to give it my best, and I will, me personally, it's just like I want to be satisfied, with my own work, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because with streaming being a thing, people are going to be watching your stuff for decades to come, and you got to make sure that it stands the test of time and it doesn't feel
Right.
dated in a couple of years.
Exactly, exactly. It's like I don't want everything I put out, I want it to be something that like when people hear it, there's like, yeah, that does justice for the character. I don't I always try to take myself out of the character and I try to be like, what can I personally bring to the character to make it less about me and more about the show.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're looking at a character like that, and he's like, oh, he's a stoic goalkeeper, and it's Blue Lock, and everything's so serious, and you
Yeah,
have to like, you have to as an actor be like, okay, how do I translate that into English and
right.
make it like, you know, I don't want to say like match the Japanese actor's performance, but like keep
Sure.
the spirit alive, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's like hey, as long as he doesn't sound goofy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just I just want him to sound right.
And again, like, for people who have not seen Blue Lock, it is like a very over the top show, and it is, I mean, it is a sports anime, but it feels more like a battle shonen than an actual sports anime. So you have these, so when you're watching it subbed, you have like the over the top performances and a lot of screaming.
Everyone sounds so good though in both dub and sub. I mean, honestly, like I just watched the episode that just came out. I'm like, a lot of these people I haven't heard in the show before because they just this is their either first or second episode they're in, much like mine. And I'm like, oh man, they sound so good. Like, I want to shout some people out, but I mean, they just all sound so good. I'm freaking honored to even be a part of that cast.
Yeah, I mean it's a great cast, and again, it's one of those shows that it's one of those shows where I feel like it's a kind of an endurance test because it's like it's hard to put into words because it is insane. Like it is generally like one of those really weird anime shows where it's like everything where it's
Yeah, yeah.
where it's soccer but it's played like a battle shonen where everyone evolves during every game and everyone unlocks a secret power and it's so stupid and it's like
Yeah, yeah,
God, it's amazing.
yeah, we love it. It's true though. It's true. It is like that. It's like every few episodes they're learning new attacks and new ways to upgrade those attacks, and everyone brings their own abilities to the table. Yeah, it's awesome.
Plus, like, I mean, half the show is inner monologues. I think like half, like most of the dialogue is just inner monologues. It's the main character's inner monologue, and it's just insane.
Yeah, it's like Blue Lock monologues, you know?
So, I mean, for people who have not seen the show, this is the actual plot. Japan's soccer team isn't doing so great, so the new guy in charge is like, you know what? Let's do a battle royale type thing and bring in all these kids, all these teenagers, and let's test them out. And it's like basically a prison. It's
Yep.
basically battle royale, but no one gets killed.
Yep. Throw 'em in the ringer.
And it's weird because like in any other series, Ego would be the antagonist because everything about him just screams antagonist. But in this series, he's the mentor character, which is just weird. And it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, he's a Derek Snow does a phenomenal job bringing that character to life. He's this is such an interesting character. There's so many interesting characters in that show with very like unique attributes about them. Um, it's like it's a shame some of them don't come back, you know, as bigger characters, but everyone's like unique.
oh man, yeah. God, remember the first episode where everyone was thought Kira was gonna be a bigger deal than he
Yeah,
actually was?
yeah, I did, and I think that's what locked me in. Locked. That's what got me into it. The was that play. I was like, oh my God, like they just threw out this character who seemed like one of the main characters, just threw him away.
And what I love about it is that they built the first arc is basically them getting together as a team and then like they split up and then seeing them like seeing that team dynamic slowly just fade away, just basically get thrown in the trash, and then we're just like, oh, we're just gonna be moving on to a different team, and it's just like, okay.
It's the whole concept is just like it's like ego, you know. Every man is the best kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's great. It's
It
again
is.
like I mean I can't do this show justice by talking about it because I feel like it is one of those things you have to watch like all the
Yeah.
way through, sub or dub. But preferably I think, either way, I mean it is one of those things where I do think you should experience at least the first season to get a good handle because of what this is because it is just so insane and so stupid and I love it.
I agree. If I were to recommend my top five anime, Blue Log would be in there.
And I know that season two's animation isn't all that great, but I mean, it's still it's more
Well, the
Blue
memes are
Lock.
great. The memes are great.
Oh God.
Right?
I I saw this one on Twitter where it's just like a bunch of still images, live action still images of people playing
I'm sorry,
soccer.
but I love the memes. They give me so much life.
It's like nobody in like Blue Lock season two animation. It's just a bunch of still images.
I know. They're doing their best though. I know there's always, weird corporate situations that back end stuff that we have no idea about, But but yeah, memes are funny.
And plus, like, and what I find interesting about the series is that there's this character Nagi who has his own subplot, and he gets his own movie. So it's like
Yeah.
if you want more Nagi, here's an entire movie based around
Yeah.
this
It'd be
guy.
cool if it'd be interesting if they gave movies to Botcha or other characters too, and they all had their own movies. That'd be cool.
Yeah, but I think with that movie, I think there was enough. There was enough. What do you call it? I don't want to say content because I hate that term.
Yeah,
There
I
was
know what you
enough.
mean.
There was enough material from the manga to adapt into a feature length film, but I don't. For other characters, I don't think that there's enough. Like
Yeah.
there's enough material to adapt to like a full
Yeah.
length motion picture.
That's fair. That's fair. I still need to watch the Nagi movie. I've not yet seen it. I've been so busy. I need to go watch it actually.
And speaking of like, seeing as you work on anime, do you feel like do you have any more do you have free time to watch anime, or you're just like burnt out from working on
No,
anime all day?
no, I definitely have free time to watch it. I do try to watch the shows that I'm working on specifically, but I also try to watch shows that some of my friends are in. Um, I'm not like burnt out on it because I do enjoy it. I do think there's times where it's like, yeah, I can go a couple, weeks without watching it, but there's so many good shows out right now. It's hard to be burnt out on it. There's you got Daima happening right now, which is phenomenal. The only the subs out right now, but I'm excited for the English to come out. But Daima looks is so fun. I don't know if you've watched it yet.
No, I haven't had a chance to watch that. I think with me right now, once Dan to Dan came out and pretty much eclipsed anything, everything
I
else.
love Dandadan. I need to catch back up, but that is, oh my God, that's probably one of my most favorite anime out right now. As far as like the first few episodes, I haven't gotten too far into it, but I love it. That and Ranma, the remake. Oh my God, there's so many good shows out right now.
Yeah, I mean I feel like the problem with me is that, I'm very picky when it comes to anime, so it's like, I either pick like one or two shows to watch all the way through and that's it
Oh yeah,
because there's no way I'm watching all the stuff that's getting released on in one season. Come on, man. I'm not
just like
watching all
max it
that.
out, just like speed run every single show together. No, I get it. I feel like most people do that where they finish one show and then they'll go on to the next show. My problem is like everything else in my life, I do everything at once. So I'll like watch every show that's coming out at once, and I'll mix up the Dragon Ball Daima plot with the Ranma remake plot with the Blue Lock plot.
I mean, to be fair, I mean that it's one of those things where you just get so you look at all these options and you're just like I want to keep up with this show and I want to keep up with that show and I also like as a recording Beastar season 3 came out and I still haven't watched that, so that's another one on the to-do
Oh,
list. So it's like I need like I just don't have time. I'm sorry, I just don't have time.
yeah, add it to the list. Add it to the list.
And the only reason I'm getting to Blue Lock now, I know that the show has been out for like 2 years now, is because I finally got to it.
Finally.
It's been on the backlog for 2 years, but I finally got to it.
Oh, dude, no, yeah, it's definitely one of the there's probably more than a few anime that I still need to watch, but it's like, yeah, no, time is of the essence for sure. But I'm glad you finally got around to watching Blue Log. That is a good one.
Because I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna watch a sports anime, I'm just gonna pick the one that I've seen people talk about on Twitter, and that's it. Like, like if I'm gonna delve into the world of sports anime, because I've watched romantic comedies, I've watched dramas, I've watched fantasy anime, I've watched a bunch of terrible isekai shows.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But sports anime is just like that uncharted land where it's like, okay, if I'm gonna be watching a sports anime, it better be the one that people have been talking about because there's no way I'm gonna be watching like other stuff, a sports
Yeah.
anime, and it's like, hey guys, I finally watched this thing. What? No one's seen it? Okay.
Yeah, that is a thing, especially if it's an older show. It's like not that many up and coming watchers have seen it. But hey, but Blue Lock makes sense, especially for your thing, because your gig is interviewing voice actors. So there's so many voice actors in Blue Lock, so it makes sense.
I mean, like I said many times before, like with my when it comes to me and looking at potential guests for this show, I just look at the cast list, and if I see a name I don't recognize, I'm like, huh, I wonder if I can get them on the show.
And it works. Good job. No, that's smart, actually. That's really smart because like the names you recognize are probably people who are like too busy.
I mean, yeah, yeah, because like and it's not because like they're too busy. Sometimes like because the Texas Dallas scene is so small, you start to see the same couple of names in most of these shows, and it's like, yeah, I've either had them on the show or have like, or they're either too busy or they don't do interviews. So it's kind of like, you
It's
gotta
fair.
like, make sure that when it comes to picking people for this show, I gotta make sure that it's not like, I mean, do they do interviews? Are they not too busy? Or is it someone who I've had on before? How much time has passed before I can bring someone back on because I hate being the guy who's like, oh, let's do back-to-back episodes.
Have, have you ever done a like a part two though for any actors?
I've only had two actresses on, no, three actresses on multiple times. So, I'm not against it. So, you
Oh,
know.
cool. Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, especially if it's a fun interview. Might as well bring it back.
Yeah, it's especially when it comes to a case of like, if they book something big and it's like, okay, I need an excuse to talk about this thing.
Gives me a reason. That makes sense.
And sometimes, they book something like really big and it's like, oh, I wish I had the opportunity to talk to them about that, but I recorded that interview a year ago. And I don't
Right.
want to be like, hey, can you come back to talk about this one show that you just booked?
Just this one show. I mean, it makes sense if especially if it's one that you're interested in. Makes sense.
It's like why did you bring them back? Because I wanted to talk about this really dumb obscure show that no one watched.
I think that's a great reason. I am all for it.
No, but I mean it is fun, talking to people and just I love it. For me, I love what do you call it? I love listening to people who I've never heard before in stuff. So it's like, oh, I wonder like what this person brings to the table because when it comes to anime dubs, especially like I've listened to enough anime dubs that I think I know a person's strengths and weaknesses at this point. So it's
Nice.
like I'm at that point where I've like and this is not a dig at any actor specifically. I'm just saying like once you listen to a bunch of Alejandro Saab performances, you kind of get an example of what that guy is all about.
No, no, I get it though. I get it. And that's what we all strive to be better, better versions of ourselves. And like if you interview someone or talk to someone now and then you probably talk to them 2 years later, there's a pretty good chance they've grown, not only as an actor, but as a person in some way or shape or form. So no, it makes sense. Yeah, everyone's always striving to be that Alejandro Saab.
Yeah, the Alejandro Saab or Chris Sabat or
Oh
Sean
yeah.
Sean Schimmel or pick your random Dragon Ball actor
Figure-
here.
No, that's definitely true. Like we all got our role models.
And who would you say inspired you the most to pursue voice acting?
For me, it is. Damon Mills, and the reason being um, is I've watched him grow into the actor he is, and I remember back when he, was just starting out, and I knew him online, and seeing him grow into, being a director of like Dragon Ball, the video game, and then voicing Frieza and all these other crazy things, being in Final Fantasy and stuff. It inspired me, definitely inspired me to get back into acting. Um, and he had recommended, because when I decided to jump back into acting and voice acting, he recommended that I try to shoot for a hub city. So I was like, okay, I'll try Dallas. But he's always been very helpful and insightful if I have any questions. Um, so definitely, Damon Mills is my go-to role model. If someone else is as Alejandro Sabs and Zeno Robinson and everything, Chris Sabat, mine would definitely be Damon.
And I feel like it is important to like, if you're going to be pursuing this full time, it is important to have someone there who's like, hey, this is what you need to do, because
Yeah.
because it is not a cheap industry to get into. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I used to hit him up more often with questions, but now it's like I kind of found my footing, and I don't want to bother people too much. So I'm just like, I'm finding my footing, and if any hard-hitting questions come up, or maybe I start looking into the con scene or something, I'll probably ask around again. I know like a few of my peers do a lot of con stuff. I haven't jumped into that scene at all yet, so you were catching me pretty early on in my career, actually.
I mean, it's kind of the best time to do it because once you hit it big, then you become too big for this show, and then I can't get you back
No,
on.
I'll never be too big for a podcast. I'm always down for interviews, honestly. They're fun.
Like I always love it whenever I'm like, oh, I'm like the second or third person that you've what do you call it? Like whenever I interview an actor and they've only done like one or two interviews, and then I'm like, oh, I feel bad now because I'm hitting them with all the tough questions.
No, it's good. It's good. No, no, you're actually my second. Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like because I remember there was one voice actress who, yeah, she's kind of a big deal. She's kind of like has is an established name, and I've had her on the show a year ago, and she was like, oh, I've only done like two interviews, and this is like the second one I've done, and I kind of
Oh
felt
wow.
and I kind of felt bad because I kept asking her like really tough questions, and she was obviously confused as to why.
Oh, it happens. It happens. Everything's a learning process,
Like I remember asking her a question about like how to what do you call it like maintain the essence of a character from like English to Japanese, and she was like, I don't know, man. You gotta ask like the localize the localization team for that or something.
Yeah, I mean, she's not wrong. I mean, yeah, they're definitely teams of people who work on making sure the writing is translated properly and fits the flaps and everything. And then our job is to take it from there, put the cherry on top, and bring it to life.
Yeah, but I mean, my point is like I felt bad after that. It's like,
Uh,
oh, because you
Oh
just
no.
because I mean, I'm fascinated by like adaptation and like how to adapt something to an audience while maintaining the while not making sure that it's like what do you call it like it doesn't stray too far away from the source material.
Right, right.
And I think that's what fascinates me about anime dubbing. It's not the acting itself. It's like how
Right.
do you you know, like how do you translate something that already exists into a different language and still maintain,
Yeah,
the
the
essence of that.
integrity. Yeah. No, makes sense.
I mean, that's how my mind works. I mean,
That's good though.
I've always been fascinated by anime dubbing because it's like, like again, like you said, when it comes to the con scene, I've seeing actors who like that's your first introduction. That was my first introduction to the con scene, where just seeing all these like English voice actors show up to these events and they have these prints of all these characters, and I'm just like, huh, like you pretty much built an entire like brand around like being known for voicing anime characters, and it was kind of
Yeah,
interesting. It was kind of interesting like looking back at that era, especially like early era, like early cons where you didn't get a lot of English dub voice actors because anime was still seen as like that, that kind of like low tier form of entertainment.
right,
It isn't like what it is now where you can
right.
get a bunch of voice actors and you'll guarantee like there's going to be a bunch of people at their table. Before, like the the what do you call it, like the 2000s to early 2010s, it was like a very niche like
Yeah,
interest when it came to the con scene. But now it's like now they'll just like you'll see anime voice actors at all sorts of cons, and of course there's always going to be people complaining, but it's like, oh, it's not the original, it's the English voice actor. And
sure, sure.
yeah, whatever, screw you, buddy.
Yeah, it's like dubbing's there for a reason, to reach more audiences. So yeah, and there's always going to be people who prefer the subs over dubs and vice versa. That's what it's there for. And but yeah, no, I'm excited to eventually jump into the con scene. I'm waiting for a few more characters before I do that.
Yeah, you kind of need like, one or two big name characters before you like jump into that scene, because it's like, yeah, because I think the big misconception people have about it is like, oh, if you just book like that one big character, you can start doing it, but it's like, no, not really, because
Right.
while that character might be popular in one show, it's kind of like it's good to have like options for people who aren't familiar with that show, or might know you from something else. And because like it happens a lot where they might know you from a specific thing and you don't have a print for that specific character, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Right. Yeah, it's just like being able to um bring to the table like your body of work and like to be realistic with yourself. And I know there's some cons that reach out no matter what size you are, but even I try to avoid those just because I personally don't feel like I'm ready. But I feel like yeah, no, I think you're right. Like attending cons kind of have to be real with yourself. Like, hey, do I have the body of work to really be, putting myself in this kind of situation, or am I wasting money and wasting time? And, but like to each their own. That's just my mindset. Definitely waiting on a few you know, more just well-known characters before I like start throwing money at that.
Plus, it helps, like, if you book something and they make like a Funko Pop of that character, then it's like, yeah, then you're ready.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, you got the Funko Pop, you should be hitting every con in the country.
Because look, man, I've been to many cons, and there's always that one guy who shows up with like an entire like briefcase of Funko
Yeah.
Pops and merch and statues, and just gets the actor to sign all of them so they can sell them later on eBay or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That might be scummy, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? At least the actor got paid. At least they got paid.
It's like, everyone's got their business, everyone's got a business they gotta run. My thing is, I'm not really too, obviously money's unfortunately a factor, but like me, I just kind of want to go to cons just to talk to people, fans, peers, and other people. I just, just hang out, and hanging out while being able to afford it. That's the key.
Oh man, like I find it difficult to even do that nowadays because like everything's just gotten so expensive. I remember like going to a local con, like I said, the local con I met Caitlin Glass at like a month ago, and it was a much smaller con, so it's a smaller venue, and not a lot of like it wasn't like massive or anything like that. But I ended up spending like a lot of money in a short amount of time, and it's like, God damn, what is wrong with me?
Like I have a problem. You realize that once you just go to a con, you're like, oh man, I have a spending problem. It happens to me too. Trust me.
because here's the thing, it's like, you know what, I mean, maybe I'll just get like one print signed, and then I go there, and lo and behold, someone has like a really rare a Cammy action figure from Street
Yeah.
Fighter, and it's like, of course I'm gonna buy that to get that signed by Caitlin Glass. Why wouldn't I?
Oh, absolutely. The question of money goes out the window when you're at a con. I am all for throwing the bag when it's when you're at the cons, man.
Okay, how much money have you spent at a con, like in
Oh, you don't want
total?
to know. You don't want to know. No, the most I've ever spent at a con was when I first was trying to get into the scene of Dallas voice acting, and I came down here, I think it was Fan Expo, and I wanted to literally just meet every actor in person. Not like be annoying and be just that guy that's just like, hey, like I'm trying to do this. It's more just I just wanted to meet everyone. And because there was a lot of actors that were going to Fan Expo. And so I didn't want to like meet them and not buy anything. It's like if I'm gonna waste their time with talking to them, I'm just gonna, buy something, So let's just say easily $1,000, I think. Easily. That includes everything else I bought. So it's a problem, but I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, that's why to me the best cons are just like, oh, they'll just let me talk to the actor and I don't have to buy anything. Awesome. Those are the best
Yeah.
cons.
And there's always there's always the actors who are always like, you don't have to buy anything, it's okay, like it's like you're fine. Like and it's just like, well, I'm gonna buy something, because, I just you have a line and I'm holding up the line, so let me but I don't expect other people to do that. It's just me.
No, with me it's like if I notice like there's an actor and they don't have a line and it's like I can just ramble on for God knows how
Yeah.
long, I'll do it. I'll freaking do it,
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, and those are the best when there's no lines and you could just ramble forever. Yeah, no, I get it.
I mean, especially with Caitlin Glass, I'm like, look, man, it's Caitlin Glass. There's like a bunch of questions I want to ask her, and there's like barely anybody there. So it's like, I want to like pick your brain when it comes to directing because I really like
Exactly.
because I really like your work as a director.
Oh yeah, she's an amazing director. I was literally just having this conversation with someone. I was like, every show she puts out, you can like it's got her like stamp of approval on it because it's, every director at Crunchy is amazing, but like her you can tell like it's her show because there's just this seal of approval that you can hear on it. And I don't know. Yeah, no, I'd absolutely agree. I I'm always surprised when some actors have no lines, but I guess that's the game. Sometimes it's busy, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect like, especially when it comes to like, bigger shows, like what do you call like My Hero that has like a huge cast of characters. Of
Yeah.
course, like there's gonna be episodes where the character shows up and they don't have any lines, but it's like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. But
Yeah.
that's the nature of the business.
It is, yeah. And especially if your character, let me rephrase this. If you, as the actor, have characters that are bigger than the character you play in, say, My Hero, but you're being marketed as the My Hero actor, it's like, well, that guy, he probably would have had a bigger line if he was marketed as, say this other character from a different show. But no, I get it. I get it. Sometimes they push things in groups.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing when it comes to like what do you call it? Like another thing where it's important to being consistent when it comes to booking cons is that you have to have a large line of work to so they can like market you as like, oh, you're the person from this show and that show and this thing
Right.
and that thing. So people who have various interests or want to meet you for like a specific thing go to that con to meet you for that specific thing. Obviously with Caitlin Glass, obviously, they were promoting the heck out of Street Fighter because that's like the biggest, that's like an iconic character that she voices, Cammy in Street Fighter. So of course they're gonna, like hammer it in where it's like, oh, she's Cammy in Street Fighter, Cammy in Street Fighter. So of course, like that's the main hook,
Yeah.
as opposed to here's like this random character she voiced in like Fire Force. Remember that?
Right, right. It makes sense, man. Like it just pushing groups of various franchises and stuff. I imagine brings in more people than if it was just like pushing one character from a show. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, because you can't just be like, oh, we got the guy who did the voice of like this one thing, unless the show is like really really popular, or if they're like an on-camera actor or whatever, then you can get away with that. But that's
Yeah,
very rare, very rare. Like, I kind of like what do you call it? Like Amazing Digital Circus. I think that's kind of the one of the few exceptions where that show is so massively popular that they can just like market the actors from that alone, and it's like, oh, and of course, and people will show up for that. So but those are the exceptions.
yeah, yeah. There's a few exceptions, but yeah, no, that definitely, especially with anime, it's always pushing the full cast.
Yeah, it's like, and it's especially when you can, I think what makes it interesting is like, getting like more than one person who worked on a specific show together. That's another like great marketing opportunity because it's like, oh, we have the entire cast of Spy Family here, so
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
Love me some Spy Family.
Oh, just waiting on season three. Come on, where's
I
my
know
season
it.
three?
I know it's such a solid show.
It's another one of my favorite shows where I'm like, you know what, just watch Spy Family. It's amazing. It's great. Please go watch it. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorite shows ever.
Yeah, it's a really good show if you have like someone that's never seen an anime before, and maybe they're not into like the crazy gritty stuff or whatever, but they're like the comedy and the timing and everything about the and the cuteness of Spy Family, I think is like a really good, first watch for people who haven't seen an anime.
Yeah, it is one of those animes where you can just be like, oh, yeah, there's like some violence here and there, but it's nothing like too gratuitous. Like there's not like too much sex or violence in it. So,
Right,
I feel
right.
like, this is something you can show somebody and it's like, oh, this is okay, It's not like Chainsaw Man or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and the characters are so lovable, and there's like so many different archetypes of different characters. They're all funny in their own way.
Has there ever been a show that you want to be a part of, either ongoing or something that has not gotten an adaptation yet?
Spy Family. Well, yeah, Spy Family. Um, since we're talking about it, but not adaptation. Hmm, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure if I think hard enough, I could think of something. Um, but yeah, I think it'd be fun to be in the Spy Family when it comes back.
I mean, you're not the first actor I've talked to who's like, I want to be in Spy Family, and because it's a really good show, and I've had people on who are like, I don't care, I'll do Walla, I'll do a voice of a dog, I just want to get on this show.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It looks fun at least. Oh, we were talking about My Hero earlier as far as the adaptations go. I believe there's that spin-off. I think that would be a fun one to be in.
I mean, we'll see if that ever gets an anime adaptation. We'll see.
Yeah, that one would be a good one for sure. I know a lot of people would want to jump on that.
Because I know a lot of people who have been clamoring for that, and for Vigilante's anime adaptation because they're like, oh, it's more My Hero, and you can just like, I can voice this character, I can voice that character, I want to play this guy or that girl or whatever.
Yeah,
But it's like, but when it comes to that sort of stuff, I feel like I mean, it's good to want things, but you also got to be realistic with it, where it's like, if this gets an anime adaptation, am I gonna get, called in for it, and if you don't, then, you got to make do with what you got, don't set yourself up to get heartbroken so easily.
right, right. And that's so easy to fall into that trap, because we all want these things, and if we don't get it, it's an easy trap to fall into. Just try to remind ourselves that like we're uh we're actors who are here to fill the roles of the needs of the director and the show, and that's as far as it goes. we can have dream roles, but at the end of the day, we're not owed anything, you know. I always tell myself, Crunchyroll doesn't owe me anything. Anime doesn't owe me anything. Um, but I am if I'm a solution to one of their problems, then by all means call me in and I'll do my best.
I feel like there's no shame in being a utility guy. There's no shame in
Yeah.
being a utility actor. Because I've said this before many times. I feel like, when it comes to being a voice actor, you gotta be a Swiss Army knife. You gotta like be, be
Yeah.
there, be be there, be ready to give the director what they want, exactly what they want, and whatever they needed, be it Walla or a main role or a supporting role.
Yeah, for real. Just like being able to lock in and just do your job, you know, and don't make it hard. Don't make it harder than it already is, you know.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like the simuldub schedule and like having to get these episodes out faster.
Oh yeah, and like the thing is like there's so much back end to it, you know, and it's like I don't know everything that goes on in the back end. I'm not gonna act like I do. I'd like to know more, but you know, I just try to focus on like doing the best I can when I'm called in, whether it be, you know, something small or whatever, you know, I'm gonna treat every single session with the utmost respect I can and you know, some days I might be having a hard day, but it's like with any other job, you got to go in there and you got to do a good job, you know?
Yeah, even if you're only there for like for a character who only has
Yeah,
like two or three lines, you gotta like make it count.
you have to. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like everyone's there to pull their weight, you know, and if you're not going to pull your weight, it's you're going to hear it for sure.
And out of all the characters you've voiced, which one would you say was the toughest?
Ooh. Actually, yeah, I would say Blue Lock. I would say Haru, just because I haven't played a character like this before. Funny enough. Yeah.
Of course, it's the only named character that you have got.
It's well, I've got a few other named characters, but it's definitely the most notable for sure. Yeah, and of course that one would be the most difficult. But yeah, I've got a few other. I think the other I'd put maybe Zwei up there from Foolish Angel. That one was a little difficult just because it was the first time I did a character who had like back to back to back lines for 2 episodes in a row. It was the first time I've done that. Um, he was very fun though, but I still think Haru, even though Haru has like hardly any lines, I feel like it's just more. It definitely is more of a challenge. Not that I can't do it, but it's just more of a challenge, just because it's an archetype I've yet to actually do in a professional setting.
Yeah, I mean, for a character who's like stoic, doesn't speak a lot, but everything he says is like, you know,
Has a purpose.
yeah, has a purpose. It's like, ah, man, how do I break this? How do I break into this?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I'm having fun with it though. Anytime I have a challenge, it's just it's nothing to be scared about. It's more of just like time to get in the sandbox and play, you know?
And I find those types of roles more interesting than say like, the lead character or whatever because when it comes to lead characters and supporting cast, you kind of know what to expect. But when it comes to like characters who are only there for like one or two episodes, but still make a lasting impression on people, that they're still talking about them for years to
Yeah,
come, those I think are the best roles because I feel like what do you call it? To get the audience to care about your character, a character who doesn't have that much screen time or doesn't contribute to the quote unquote main
right.
plot is a rare talent. But I feel like if you manage to accomplish that, then you're ready for what's to come.
Right. Right. That's a good point. Yeah, like if you can stand out, then it's like for just someone that has a couple lines, yeah, it's like imagine if you had a main character or something. And the thing is I feel like so many people at Crunchy, if not all of them, are that I've heard are like super ready for like, you know, main roles or bigger roles or whatever. I think it's just all a matter of time. It's just like this show is not right for you yet. Let's wait for a show that's right for you. Let's wait for a character that's right for you. You know, as much as we as actors always want to be like, we can do it, we can do it, we can do it. It's like you're one option out of so many other options, and let the producers and the directors do their job and find the right people for the roles and trust them in that, and they'll trust you when it's your turn, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's easy to look at like a Marissa Duran and be like, oh, they got this like major career and they got cast in like all these like major roles and what have you. But it's like they were cast in Horimiya because like, what do you call it? Because Caitlin Glass knew that they, were, capable of doing that character. And
Yeah.
that's a rare exception. Like, you're not, I mean, I know everyone wants to be like, a Marissa Duran or what do you call it, Alejandro Saab,
Hmm.
and get all these like major roles and what have you, and all the lead roles in all the anime, but it's like, yeah, but it's not, doesn't work that way, I know, I mean, ideally, it'd be nice to, if you can just walk in and be handed like a lead role in a thing, but it doesn't work that way. And
No, and
even,
it's good. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was not to cut you off. I was gonna say like it's good that it doesn't work that way too, because like, you might think you're ready, but what if you're not ready? Especially what if you're not ready for a specific role? We all think we're ready, you know, but I think like a if you are cast as a um main character early on in your career, like within the first year or whatever of you being there, I mean, it's great. That means they trust you with it, and that means it made sense. Maybe it doesn't always make sense. Maybe the right character hasn't come along, but also like just because someone gets cast in their first quote unquote year at Crunchy does not mean they haven't been acting for 10 plus years or less or more before then. I always see people say like, "Oh, we got a new actor on the scene," and they'll say their name or whatever, and and I'm thinking like that person's been acting for a very long time. Everyone's on their own path, and there's no race between each other's, as you've probably heard. This isn't like oh, I'm gonna book more roles than you, or I'm gonna beat this race before you do. None of that's a thing in what we do. And if you make that a thing, I don't think that's healthy for yourself. Um, for me, I'm only going up against myself, and I trust. I put all my trust in the team of people in the teams of people at Crunchyroll who's been doing this forever. That when they find a role that's right for me, they'll give me a shot. So when they come along, which they do come along, it's like you know, you go for it. And you just got to be honest with yourself and be real with yourself and really analyzing like where you are in your career. I'm not saying analyzing every little bit of your performance, but like where you are, like are you what do you need to work on? Ask yourself some questions like, why haven't I been called in for X amount of months or whatever? Like what is it about my own self, whether it be my skill or the way I run my business or anything that I could be working on? Yeah, just being honest with yourself.
Yeah, it's important to be honest with yourself. Like, ask yourself, like, am I ready to embark on this journey? Am I ready to, be a lead or a secondary character? Am I ready to work on something that requires much more effort than like, than like than like your, what do you call it? Your typical like,
Yeah,
one-off character,
right. Yeah, it's like am I really prepared to take on and of course it's easy to just say that, but like, you know, in reality a lot of us probably think that we're ready for more than what we chew on. Um, but we just keep getting better, keep learning, keep practicing. The second you stop practicing, the second you start falling off, I think. And that's just my opinion. So yeah, nah, definitely.
Yeah, and there's a reason, like, and it's funny you mentioned, like, oh yeah, what do you call it? Like, so you see people reacting to an actor's performance, being like, oh, this person's so amazing. I can't believe they're new to voiceover, and then you look at them up, and it's like they've been around for like a couple years now, guys, and
Yeah, yeah.
and I feel like that's because like we have this misconception of like, if you don't get like a lead or a secondary role in a big name show, then you're just like then you've just been like this, then you just don't exist basically. Then you,
Which is, to be fair, from the fans' perspective, it's like they're there to watch the shows, and if they never see your name, they never see your name. So it's like I understand why they can think, certain people are new actors, but it's like in reality, it's like these people have been working on their craft, or they've even been doing Walla or bits or even named characters for Crunchy for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people getting surprised that, oh, Celeste Perez is so amazing. Why isn't she, she must be what do you call it?
Right.
Like a lot of people were surprised when she booked what do you call it, Sugar Apple Fairy Tale, like the lead in that, and and I was like, but she was doing Walla and secondary characters before that, guys. Come on, she's been around.
She's been Yeah, she's been killing it, way before then, but I get it from a fan's perspective, it's like, oh, I've never seen that name before. Yeah, it's just interesting. I feel like that we also like as actors can maybe let that get to our head a little bit, but I feel like we should just really honestly just fo keep focusing on our craft and what we can bring to the table for the shows.
Yeah, because if you're not trying to improve your craft, then what are you doing this for, honestly?
Right. You're right. Exactly.
If you're not hungry, if you're not striving to constantly improve, constantly like stand your ground with the best of the best, then what are you doing this for?
Yeah. And like being real with yourself again, like just like, okay, why do I feel this way about this read? Maybe you're watching a movie or you're watching a play or something, or you're playing a video game and there's some acting going on and maybe you really like it. You really like what's going on. Maybe you really don't like what's going on, like you really dislike the reads. Take that moment to like note it down either in your head or somewhere and just be like, why do I feel this way? Because as an actor, like that's what you should be doing. I feel like you should really be like just critically thinking about the performances all around you and even just people watching when people are talking around you and you're like, like taking notes, like, oh, interesting. They said it that way. But yeah, yeah, always working on your craft for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's important to note that, there's never going to be a point. I mean, if you want to be a working actor, then there's never going to be a point where you're not going to be working. Your brain is constantly going to be like thinking about what comes next. You don't focus on one thing. You don't focus on, you're not going to be like, oh, I've that's why like I always hate that, oh, I've made it moment, because there is no I've
Yeah.
made it moment, because there isn't. Like you're
Right.
you're either working or you're not. There is no I've made it moment.
Right, right. There's a there's like definitely moments where it's like you're absolutely right, but there's definitely moments where it's like I'm working more now. But yeah, you're right. There's no like this is the moment I'm like it's over, like I don't have to work anymore. It's over. Like I'm at the point. Yeah, that doesn't exist for voice actors now.
Yeah, you're either working on projects and you're booking constantly or you're not, And there are
Right.
gonna be years where you're not gonna be booking much. I've said this, like the last episode I recorded. This year has not been good, for me podcasting wise because, I got a lot more rejections this year, and then, the whole video game strike happened and that, affected things. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
this year as a whole has not been good, for me podcasting wise, but I've accepted that. I'm like, you know what? This year wasn't great. All I can do now is just like pick myself back up and hopefully push for better things going forward, and thinking about like how to, strategize myself, and like, try to keep this going and be consistent and like switch things up, and not give up on my craft, and not give up on the thing that brings me joy, because I feel like the worst thing you can do as an actor or a creative in any field is give up on the thing that brings you joy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's healthy too, to like take a step back every now and then and just kind of look at where you're at and why you're feeling the way you're feeling about things. And yeah, no, that's definitely healthy. I've definitely had my days, plenty of days where it's just like I don't want to do this, and then you just have to, maybe you need a break, maybe you need to take a shower, maybe you need to eat some food, take care of yourself a little bit, before you jump back into the thing. But yeah, that's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, because creatives like get burnt out easily because we're constantly focused on, on the things we love and constantly trying to improve on the things on our craft and getting better and being like, and we're always going to compare ourselves to our peers or people who do the same things we do and be
Right.
like, oh, why am I not booking this, or why am I not like, why didn't I get a chance to talk to this person or talk to that person? And it is easy to get to fall in that rut and be like, oh, I'm not good enough, everyone hates me or
Oh yeah.
whatever. But at the end of the day, you just gotta like, pick yourself back up, take a break from it if you need to, and then go back to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. There's always those little bugs in our ears telling us things, imposter syndrome, whatever it may be, telling us things, and it's just like you just gotta t turn that down, and just be real with yourself, and take a deep breath. It's all gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you did what you did the best you could, and that's all that matters, really.
Right.
And and like I said, I'm flattered that a lot of people who I've talked to think that I'm like massively successful because I've interviewed so many people, and it's like, yeah, but again, it's like, it's not, yeah, that I'm still thriving to improve. I'm still thriving to get a lot more people on the show. I mean, I do have like a, that, talking about like dream roles, you do, I mean, as an interviewer, as a podcast interviewer, I'm like, yeah, I do have like, I guess, as that like, what do you call it, like the the wish list of like people you want to get on the show and what have you. And someday, I mean, and I'm still striving for it. I'm not like, I haven't given up on that. It's just like, when things get tough, I need to step back and take a break from it and really think about like, how am I going to approach things moving forward?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a big thing with literally any craft is like you're bettering yourself. It's not, and you're not, unless you're playing a sport or whatever, or you're actually going up against someone. I feel like you're always just trying to be a better version of yourself. And it's like, I always try to tell myself, like, what can I do today that I didn't do yesterday? And sometimes it's rest. Sometimes it's take a long break. But that's hard to do, as you know. Um, I was gonna ask what other actors do you want to interview?
Oh God, the list is really long.
Yeah.
It's it's
If you had to
it's
pick one, who would it be?
Oh God, don't put me on the spot like that,
I'm
man.
interviewing you now.
Oh, pick one. Oh, that's so hard. That's so hard, man. It's like, pick one. Oh, that's tough. Ooh, that's tough.
A lot. There's a lot of people out there.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, because there are like plenty of people that I get fascinated by, and I'm like, I really just like, want to get them on the show, or just like, just want to have a conversation with them, just like, see how their brain works, because I'm so fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know what it is about me where I'm like, I love listening to people talk about their process for whatever reason. I'm just like, that's what inspires me, just listening to people talk about like, how they approach a certain situation, how they approach their craft. It's like, oh, that's like, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
What drives you? No, that's awesome. I'm sure you'll have a chance to interview all kinds of people, if you keep doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
having that drive is what'll keep you going for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't given up. Even with this year being as terrible as it has been, I haven't given up on the podcast. I've just slowed down a little bit, obviously,
Sure. Yeah.
but I'm, picking myself back up, and I'm like, I'm still reaching out to people, still trying to schedule some things. I know I had to like cancel two interviews that I had planned for like, what do you call it, November and this month. Those got
Yeah.
got pushed back, and it's unfortunate it happens, but like, what can you do,
Yeah, I feel like you got a good thing going though. Like yeah, I I don't think, if you keep pushing yourself, I don't think anything negative can come out of it, you've got a unique podcast, and I think that a lot of people probably enjoy listening to it, so they probably want you to keep going too.
I mean, I still haven't heard anyone say anything bad about it, so
Hey,
so
that's how I feel about my voice acting. I'm like, hey, if no one's, well, I have two things. If no one says anything bad, but also if no one says anything at all, that's a good sign too.
yeah, it's like I'm perfectly fine with that. Like I'm perfectly fine with like just being like, oh, meeting someone at a con that I've interviewed and be like, hey, do you remember me? We did a podcast like a couple years ago, and they're like, oh, I remember you, or I don't remember you, and it's like I'm fine either way. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
really it doesn't really bother me.
You're here for a good time. Yeah, no, I get it.
It's like, yeah, I remember that thing we did. That was pretty cool. Or I don't remember it. Sorry. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, I don't blame them for not remembering because the past couple of years have just been a blur, honestly.
Sure,
And
sure.
and and even I go back and listen to some old episodes and I'm like, when did I record this?
Sure, yeah. It's like with any craft, you can always improve on things. I can look back at my past performances and be like, it's like, why, and when, and how. But yeah, that's part of the game.
Oh, especially being like an anime voice actor and listening to like your early work and how green you are, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh.
And shivers down my spine.
And that's another thing is like, whenever I hear someone who, get who I have now who what do you call it? Like is I don't want to say inexperienced, but like is just getting their foot in the door and you listen to a to their like first ever like supporting or main role, they're always going to come off as green because like there's
Mhm.
always going to be that part of like, oh man, I'm a named character and I'm like the secondary lead and you listen to those first couple episodes and they're pretty rough because the actor's trying
Sure.
to figure out like what they're doing and trying to figure out who this character is, but once they figure it out, it's all smooth sailing from there.
Yeah, and it's all perspective, and there's so much that goes into it. Like, it's more than just the acting. Again, like I was saying earlier in the interview, like for me, it was the going from going from my home booth to Crunchyroll's booth, and it feels so foreign. Not so much anymore. I mean, every now and then it still does, but like not as much as back then. But yeah, there's so much that goes into it. But yeah, like you're as an actor, I feel like you're always going to be getting better if you're continuing to work. And so you're always going to look back at your old stuff and feel like you could have done better, I feel like, at least for me, it might that doesn't necessarily mean it was bad, but it was just like, oh yeah, that's an interesting, read. I definitely probably would have done that differently now. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's not much you can really do about that sort of stuff because you can't be like, hey, you can't just call someone up from Crunchyroll and be like, hey, remember that anime we did 5 years ago? Yeah, I want to redub that.
Let's redo that one. It's that old show that we did a long time ago. Let's redo that. Just my scenes, if that's okay. Yeah.
And and again, like that's why like I know whenever I'm watching like English dubs now and I'm listening to someone who is either just starting out or just like booked their like first lead role, I try not to be too hard on them because I'm like, they're obviously working on it with a lot of pressure and they're trying to figure this out as they go along, so I don't want to be that nitpicky jerk on Twitter who's like, oh, this dub is terrible because of this line read or whatever. It's like, come on
Right.
guys, come on.
It's like I never blame people for having opinions about stuff because they have a right to their opinion, but knowing what goes into the craft, you understand it's not like a normal job, you understand that like you don't just clock in and do a job. You're you're creative and you have to feel things. You have to essentially feel things in the moment, and you don't have much time within that moment. And again, like all the back end that goes into that, acting is not just some job that you just go do. it's like if the scene requires you to be emotionally involved, I mean, it's a human thing to have to be able to pull that out. You can't just, oh, I'm emotionally involved. Like, it's like the guy's crying on screen and you can fake your cry, but like people will hear it, you know what I'm saying? You can't just do it, you need to be able to tap into those feelings and that's I think when you talk to these people or when you work in the field, you understand that. But like if you're just a fan or whatever, it's gonna I expect a lot of strong opinions because like that's they're there to hear something, and if they hear it a certain way, they don't like it. I mean, it's what can you do, but I always take that criticism. Not that I've ever had that. I'm still relatively new, but I've never had people talk about my performances in that way. But I assume that'll one day happen, and when it does happen, I'm not going to knock anyone for feeling that way, but I will listen to myself and try to understand how I feel about it. If I like it and some guy doesn't like it, I mean that's fine. It's whatever. They're allowed to feel that way. But me personally, I'm satisfied with it. And again, if the director liked it, that's usually I take that as like a green light for me to like move on.
And you can't really impress everybody, it's
Right.
that's just life in general. You're not going to impress everybody. I've interviewed people who, but I'll be honest, some of the conversations just didn't go anywhere and didn't click because again, it's impossible to hit it
Yeah.
off with everybody, and that's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, why didn't this random person like me? It's like, oh, whatever,
Right.
you know.
Right, exactly. And you hit it on the head. Like you're not going to hit it off with everyone, and not everyone's opinions are going to be the same as yours. So yeah, you can't please everyone. My take on this character might not be the take that other people were expecting, and but again, like that's why the director's there and that's why the producer's there, and I give them what I have, and they take it and they say, "Hey, let's change this about it." And then if not, then we move on.
And that's all you can do, really. You can't just sit there and be like, well, you can't just like prolong the session is basically what I'm trying to say. You
Right.
can't just like sit there and be like, well, I have a few notes and your notes are like an entire like paperbacks
Dude,
worth
it is.
of.
Yeah, no, and it's a luxury when a director has that extra free time where they're like, "Hey, like, let's go back and listen to these reads," or was there anything. Yeah, like you said, we're on a time crunch, and like, granted, I always try to finish my sessions early, because it's always a good thing. But yeah, it's like rare that we have the time to go back and redo things during the session. It's like, okay, good. Let's go on, move on. Okay, let's change that. Okay, next, change that. Next. Yeah.
And sometimes when an actor can't make it for whatever reason, they'll just like recast them for the English dub for a couple
Sure.
episodes, and it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, it
So
does. Yeah, because like we have to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a time scale thing, and if you can't be there, it's like okay, well, we're just gonna use someone else.
I mean, it's happened twice on Spy Family.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there you go. So, and because like they need the content out faster, and so they're like, well, we can either wait for this actress to come back from like maternity leave you know,
right.
or whatever, or we can just get someone else to record her lines, and then when it comes out on when it or then redub them later because they did that
Yeah,
with Spy Family. So it's like whatever. it
yeah, and it's
it
like life
happens.
happens. Exactly. Like, yeah, things happen in life, and sometimes people have to take time off. Obviously. Uh, but like Crunchyroll still has to operate, so yeah, they're gonna bring someone else in, and sometimes they'll redub it. But yeah, no, I've had sessions. I've had one session where one particular actor was just couldn't get the lines out or whatever, and we were going over. It was like a Walla session or whatever. And the director's like, hey, like we're going over, but so we have to end it. We're gonna have to end the session now, and they had to reschedule that actor to come back, and that was the first time I've ever seen that happen. But it's like if you're going over the time limit, that's never a for a company like Crunchyroll, that's never a good thing. Like we got to reschedule.
Oh, especially when you're working on a time crunch and they need these episodes out faster. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's like, hey, like we're going over.
Yeah, I mean it's just one of those things where, one of the things that I find really interesting, talking to people who do anime is like a lot of them either grew up like watching subs and they didn't care for dubs, and then they found a new appreciation for doing for dubs after being a part of a dub, or they watched dubs as as teenagers or whatever, and they felt like, oh, the quality isn't there, I want to like try to make it better, so
Yeah,
it's very interesting, very interesting, like
it is. Or like sometimes the dubs, like in my situation with My Hero, the dub was so good that I was like, damn, I want to be a part of this.
I mean, you're not the first person I've talked to who's like, I want to get into anime because of My Hero Academia.
It makes
Like,
sense. It's so good. I mean, the story's good, the dubbing's good, everything about it's good.
I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of My Hero Academia, but like, I get why people like
Hey, that's
it.
fair.
So, I mean,
That's
I
fair
get
to
it.
each their own. No, it makes sense. I know some people who dislike it, so it's like, hey, it's all good.
I don't hate it, nor am I like a huge fan of it. I'm very neutral when it comes to it. I mean, like, there are some questionable story beats that are just like,
Yeah, that's fair. You're allowed to have your criticism and opinions about it. I feel like for me it's I actually so it's interesting because I stopped watching anime from 2000 from about year 2014 to 2020 or 21, whenever season 6 was for My Hero. But I had a friend who kept saying, "You need to watch My Hero. You need to watch My Hero. You need to watch My Hero." And I'm like, I don't really watch anime, yada yada. And I had stopped watching My Hero. Did I say season 6? I think it was season 4. My bad, not season 6. Season 4 with the overhaul. I think it was season 4. But that's the one that I jumped back into, and it got me back into anime completely. It was Kellen Goff's performance with Overhaul. I was like, just like, holy shit! And everyone else, Bakugo, Clifford. I was just like, everyone sounds so good, and this is such a good show. And then I started watching other anime again, but it was that was kind of like the like, I don't know, like it reawakened that feeling of like, damn, I really want to be an actor again, and this is the medium I want to be in, and so I'm gonna do it.
I mean, it's good to have that. It's good to like have like that motivation, that drive that keeps you like that keeps you going, and keeps you like invested in the craft, and inspires you to to want to keep doing it,
Yeah, like reasons to do it. Yeah.
because it's easy to just like look at something like that and just be like, oh, whatever, it's anime, or oh, it's just the English dub or whatever. But the stuff matters to people, and media affects us in different ways.
Oh
Some
yeah.
you know
Yeah.
some stuff might be what you find banal, what you find shallow and pedantic, might be inspiring to someone else. I don't know. Like,
No, it's absolutely true. Yeah, like not all the shows are gonna hit it off with everybody the same way. Like I remember after watching that season with Overhaul and Killingoff and Rico with Mirio and everything, I was like, I immediately, because I already had a microphone and everything. I was streaming at the time and dabbling in music and stuff. And I was like, I'm just gonna jump straight into this. So I just pulled up what audio equipment I had, made a makeshift booth, and started doing, of course, doing impersonations of all the characters in that show. Um, and my awful impressions definitely helped me get to where I am now.
I mean, hey man, we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I think I have those files saved somewhere. I'll have to listen to them again somewhere.
Oh God, no.
I know. No, I'm gonna have to listen to them. I'm curious now.
Just film yourself like listening to them as a reaction.
Oh God. Yeah, but hey, but someone's bad impression is always a good character otherwise, you know?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because growing up, watching a lot of Western cartoons and then realizing that a lot of the voices I loved listening to as a kid were just bad impressions of actors that I had never heard of because,
Yeah. Yeah, literally that. Yeah. That's exactly it.
God, I love that era where everyone just did a bad impression of an existing celebrity, and the directors are just like, ah, whatever, it's fine.
It worked. And it makes its own character, so no, yeah, it makes sense. I would always practice I did a lot of Deku and Bakugo impressions, and I made a whole demo of just those impressions, and and I think I learned a lot about my voice just doing those, like where I stood, and then I just kind of went from there.
It's interesting that you picked like the two main characters who have like two different speaking patterns and way of speaking. Like, because Deku is like very high pitched and nice, and Bakugo only has like two emotions, which is anger and annoyance.
Yeah, literally, yeah. It was perfect. I was like, this is exactly what I'm gonna. Dude, yeah, good times, good times.
So, anyway, like before I wrap this up, can you give us an update on what you're currently working on and where can people find you online?
Sure thing. So right now I'm mainly working on Blue Lock. There's a few other shows I'm working on that are not out yet. So I can't talk about, obviously. But you can find me online, gerardcaster.com, or at social media platforms at Gerard Caster. But yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time off to do this. And if you ever want to come back for whatever reason, you know where to find
Yeah,
me.
yeah, absolutely. I'm down for another one for sure.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. You too.